Hello, Gin Guild. Welcome to India. Post-monsoon India, in Goa specifically. Technically, the rain should be all gone, but here it is, slight little drizzle, just to make all of you guys sitting in London feel at home. What we've got for you today is a quick little introduction to India, Goa, and the gins coming from India. And all of them are lined up right along here. We're going to start from the very beginning and take you through the journey to some of the newer members that have joined here. But the originals that have started back in 2017 are just here, which is greater than. This is one of the gins that we're making at NAO Spirits. The next two entrants were these two in 2018, which was Hapusha and Stranger and Sons. Hapusha is another one made by us. Stranger is another one made by friends of ours here in Goa. The next to enter the scene was Jaisalmer, which was actually further up in north of India. Pumori was the next entrant into the Indian gin scene, coming also from Goa. And Samsara, or Samsara as it's called, is the newest boy in town, along with another one called Gin, which has made its way out into Goa again. So, without further ado, let's get started. We're going to pick up the first bottle here, which is greater than London Dry Gin. We're going to put that across here, and we're going to get a chance to talk about India and its correlation to gin. Most people in India themselves are not aware that India has a deep-rooted tradition or deep-rooted connection with gin, right? Gin is the one spirit that uses botanicals, herbs, spices, and guess what? We happen to be in the spice capital of the world, India, right? That's pretty much why Goa was set up by the Portuguese as a colony back in the day, because they were basically exporting cinnamon, pepper, and clove, even among other spices, back to Europe. So when we were thinking about this in 2015, we thought it just made sense for India to have its own gin, well, to call its very own, right? Whereas the rest of the world already has hundreds of gins. India at that point only was dealing with cold compounded gins or, gins coming from the rest of the world, and not the most exciting ones either. So while you guys in the UK or in the US or around Europe had hundreds of gins at your beck and call, we had maybe five, and none which you could probably qualify as craft. So here we have it, greater than, became the first craft gin in India and happened to be set up in this lovely part of the country called Goa. So we're going to quickly try this one. It's called Greater Than. As I said, it's a London Dry gin style, so it's very classic in its flavor profile. It's made with Macedonian juniper berries and along with lots of spices coming from across India. Now on the nose, you can get a bit of the chamomile and the lemongrass that's used, along with the coriander seed that's coming from India itself. On the palate, you get a lot of the fennel. Fennel is very important in Indian cuisine, especially as a cleanser, as a mouth freshener, even afterwards. And at the back, you will get this nice zing of the dried ginger, so it just clears out the palate beautifully. It works beautifully for a gin and tonic. It can work really well for infusions as well as cocktails, etc. The idea here was very much to have a classic London Dry to call our very own with our own spices at the end of the day. So that's greater than, very clean, juniper forward. Quite a classic one, and it's a good place for us to start our gin journey here in India. The next one that we're going to talk about very quickly is Hapusha. From the same distillery, it's again distilled by us here in NAO Spirits. I'm just taking us chronologically through here. This one was launched in June 2018. And the beauty about this was it was the first gin to actually use only Indian botanicals, so only Indian spices, along with the main botanical, which happens to be Himalayan juniper. So it's one of those things. Himalayan juniper has been used for centuries for Ayurveda, for making, incense sticks, etc. So we finally put it to better use, of course, in making, a gin as well. So what we have here is a gin that's quite earthy. It's quite bold. It's got all these botanicals that can be found around Indian kitchens. So turmeric is there. You've got some really nice cardamom also, which comes through, which really shines through. Ginger, almonds, all of those make it a fantastic, beautiful earthy gin, and that roundness really comes in from the raw mango that we end up using in here, along with a little bit of a citrus hint, which comes from the Gondaraj, which is a Bengali lime. All in all, a fantastic one to make your Negronis with, or just to have by itself. The next one in line is this one called Stranger and Sons. It's made by 3 individuals who came together and again came across to Goa with this desire to make a fantastic Indian spirited gin. So Stranger and Sons was also launched at about the same time as Hapusha in the middle of 2018. So Stranger and Sons, you definitely get a lot more spice. You get the mace, etc. On the nose itself. When you taste it, you get this really nice hint of cassia bark, which is what they're using, as well as that mace. So typically it's what you would expect from the Indian spice palette. And there you have it. You have Stranger and Sons makes really good martinis, really nice Gibson martinis, as well as some really nice giblets as well. Cheers to them. There's a lot of citrus actually that comes through as well, which is really refreshing, cleanses up the palate, and yeah, makes a fantastic gin to have with a gin and tonic. They recommend that if you're having a gin and tonic, add in a slice of ginger and really pick up the gin and tonic overall as well. Right. So the next one we're going to move to, as the rain starts picking up pace here, is Jaisalmer. Now Jaisalmer is referring to the golden city in the middle of the desert here, in the Indian deserts that we have. Well, as you can see with the golden label itself. It's again a fantastic gin coming out from India, made in a copper pot still. There you go. It's made by actually one of the traditionally larger companies that we have here making spirits called Radico Khetan. If you're familiar with the world of whiskey, they've recently come out with a Rampur whiskey. So this is from the same family. We're going to try this one today. There we are. Again, very nice, clean juniper in there. Very well rounded off. And right from the get-go, you know that it's an Indian gin because of the spice forwardness. Most of these gins that we've seen today are not very citrusy or floral, though you get a little bit of that coming through. I think the first thing that hits you right away is a little bit of the spice. And same goes for here. They use a pepper, but specifically they use cubeb pepper, which gives it this really nice citrus spice coming across. And that's very evident immediately on the nose. It's fantastic. On the palate, it really starts to open up, and you get a lot more of the tea that they've used. They've used some green tea in there as well. And again, I suspect this would make a fantastic gin and tonic. Now, it's not a surprise that all of these gins are making great gin and tonics, simply because we happen to be in the country which started off gin and tonics. Of course, we can't really take credit for all of it, but we did create the right environment, so we will take a little bit of that credit. The gin and tonic, of course, as you know, was invented by the English or by the British that were here in India and were being attacked left, right, and center by the humble mosquito. Right? As it turned out, that humble mosquito carried with it a little gift called malaria, and the only way to combat it was quinine, which is, well, long story short, that's how the gin and tonic was born, because tonic itself had the quinine in there. Right. So now that we've hit most of the gin stops which have been around for a little while, we're going to talk about two of the gins that are fairly new to the market here. Both of these have been launched in 2020, which is, well, this fantastic year that we're having. This one is called Pumori. Pumori actually refers to the foothills of the Himalayas, where they get quite a lot of their spices from. Pumori actually is made in the same facility, but not quite the same still as Stranger and Sons. And we're quite surprised to see that they shared a little bit more than that. So there's quite a few of the botanicals in here, and I'll read them out from the back, whatever I can see. So the cinnamon, the lemon, the nutmeg that they shared in common. One of the things that I found interesting about this one is that they actually use rosemary, which has a really nice sort of a wintry feel to it. But again, it's very much a winter gin, right? It's very much a Christmas gin for you guys to have with your Christmas dinners. Now on the nose again, it's a lot more of what we saw with the cinnamon spice, etc., that we saw in Stranger and Sons. But the difference here is it does take you up to the mountains with that rosemary in there, and it does, kind of freshen it up. And yeah, so we're going to try that right now. Try not to break anything today. Fantastic. So similar, yet so very different from Stranger and Sons. Again, would probably make a fantastic Negroni, would make a really nice martini. I'd actually be tempted to try this one out as Stranger and Sons recommends it, with a gin and tonic and a slice of ginger in there. Would be absolutely fantastic. So again, one of the really promising new entrants to the gin scene in India. Keep an eye out for this. I don't think it's been launched in the UK as yet, but the other ones definitely have been. Now finally, we're going to try something new, which is quite exciting. Obviously, we've made a dent into this one already. It's one called Samsara. It's called a contemporary Indian gin, and they've really tried to geek out with it, which is great, right? Always up for experimentation with gin. Samsara, or Sansar, as they call it on the top of their cap. Sansar actually means the universe or the world. So there's obviously a lot of thought that's gone into this gin. Now, unlike the other ones that we've seen, this one is not obviously spice forward. So it took us probably a little while to categorize it. It's got a lot more floral notes going on. I'm going to make sure I don't miss any of the botanicals in here. So it's got rose petals in there, which definitely do come across. But what we found interesting here, when we tasted it, and we're going to taste it again, just well, of course you have to. What we found interesting here was their use of hemp seeds and vetiver. It gives it a really nice monsoony feel, actually. So very much like the space that we're in right now. You do feel like you're back in the Indian monsoon, and I'm quite excited to try maybe a couple of different cocktails with this one. So what we have here is a really nice selection of what we have in store here from India. It's taken us a while to get going. We've not had really good gins for a very long time, but all of a sudden in the past 3 years, from 2017 to 2020, we've got a mini explosion of sorts coming through in the gin category. There's definitely a lot more to come. There's a couple more gins that we know are already out there and are making their way out into stores, so we should have them soon, and maybe the next time we do this, we'll have a lot more to talk about. But really the cross-section that we've seen today tells us that India has a lot to offer when you talk about gin specifically because, well, there's this really great connection with the spices and the botanicals and herbs that are supposed to go into a gin and that we have in abundance here. When we were talking about making our own gin, and we had one of our very own, Anne Brock, who helped us make our two gins when she came across in 2017. When we were talking to her about what are the flavors, what are the botanicals and what are the herbs, etc., that we should use here, we were really spoiled for choice. In fact, the decision was made hard not by what we should put in, but what we should leave out. So I remember we had about 120 odd botanicals and herbs and spices that we distilled to finally bring it down to 9 in this case and 8 in this one, to actually put into the bottle. So there's a lot more to come, definitely. There's a lot more herbs and spices out there for us to explore, for more like us to explore here in India. We're very excited to be part of this revolution that's happening. And hopefully this is just a start, and hopefully you guys will see and hear a lot more about us. Until then, cheers.